Hi guys, and welcome to the Crochet Cakes YouTube channel. This is episode 102 of the Crochet Cakes podcast, and today's topic of choice is going to be tension or gauge. So how have you been? How have you all been doing? I hope you've been doing well. I want to thank you for joining me this week for an episode of the podcast, because the last video I uploaded to the channel was more of a how-to video of how I started to design and my thought process behind what I hope will be a fade crochet sweater that I can share with you guys. Of course, it's not sweater weather. We are fully in the summer, especially here in Florida, because summer is kind of like the state of the year. And it's, yeah, wool, sweaters, harsh. But as I said, I just want to welcome you to this week's episode of the podcast. I hope you're interested in what I have to share with you today. I mentioned that today's topic is tension or gauge, and there is a reason behind that. Do not run away in a panic. I promise that I also have crochet to share with you. It's just that it all has to do with some tension and gauge issues. So without further ado, I do want to say that we are still running the Eat Cake Sweater Cal in this podcast or Ravelry group or Instagram with the hashtag EatCakeCal, and it's been fun seeing people's color combinations. I know so many of you purchased the Eat Cake crochet pattern, so I just want to thank you so much for that support. It was an unprecedented number of sales for my channel, and I am so glad that so many of you thoroughly enjoyed that sweater. I am actually in the process of making one myself, and I'll share that if we have time a little bit later on in the podcast. If not, watch out for my Instagram, because that is where I am most active. I also try to be active on the YouTube community tab, page, forum. So if you do not like Instagram, also please stay in tune with this YouTube community page. I have some things in the works, and if you're subscribed to my newsletter, you will have found out some of those things, because I did a little Google Forms kind of questionnaire to figure out how we want to proceed with this podcast, because this is not my business. It's not a successful one in monetary means anyway. It is pretty successful in the community we have built and the love of the craft we share, and just the excitement that you guys help me bring to this channel. So anyway, if you aren't subscribed to my newsletter, then please feel free to subscribe. I am trying to figure out how to move forward with the newsletter, actually, because I do want to use it as a means to keep communicating, keep building our community. But I am also very aware that my newsletter subscribers are split between English-speaking and Spanish-speaking people. Hopefully that will change in the first week of May, because I am planning to get a subdomain for my website and be able to separate my English content from my Spanish content, and that way everybody is muy feliz. At least I hope so. And speaking of Spanish content, if you are bilingual or you only speak Español, I do have a Spanish-only channel. It'll be right here. I'm hoping that I'll be able to film a podcast today for English and Espanol, but we shall see. Time, guys, time. Right, anyway, how have you been? I hope that it's been a good 3 weeks for you since we last chat. They've been hard. I know 2020 and 2021 just continues to be hard for everybody. This past Sunday, we said goodbye to an aunt as well. She died of lung cancer after a year battling lung cancer. So that's just, you know, the way it goes, really. And there's this Puerto Rican singer, songwriter, rapper, whatever you want to call him, Guy Residente, and he says, I'm going to translate from Spanish. So in Spanish it says, La muerte nunca nos venció, porque todo lo que muere es porque alguna vez nació. So essentially he's saying, you know, we're never really beaten by death, or death doesn't have the best of us because we got to live, you know, and just because we died, that doesn't mean we didn't live and we didn't leave something behind. So that's kind of how I feel about my aunt. I didn't know her that well. She's my aunt on my mother's side, and my mom is one of 11 children, so it's a big family. But the time I did get to spend with her was, I remember it. I remember almost all the conversations we had, and it was a joy to be able to spend those moments with her. And I know that she's no longer has cancer, right? And that's the bright side to this. So yeah. But yes, so I hope that we are all doing as well as we are able, and that we try to, as Joe from Stitching the High Notes would say, we try to stitch a little love into our everyday lives, because as far as we know, this might be our only one, this might be our first one, or this might be our last one, but we should make it a good one and spread love and joy wherever we can. So there's no smooth way to transition this, so let's begin with some crochet content. Yeah, okay. So I actually have 3 finished objects to share with you today, and they all have to deal with the issue of gauge or tension in some small way. So I'm actually going to start in the order that I've finished them, not in the order that I've started them. So the order of items I've finished is, the first one is this lacy cocoon shrug. I've talked about this before. I mentioned I wanted to make it. It's a shrug pattern from the Romantic Crochet book by Emma Escott, who is lululoves_UK. All her designs in that book are beautiful, and I know some of you guys agree with me, because when I posted it on Instagram, you've all shared what you want to make from it. So there's really no cute way to show this shrug, so I'm just going to insert some pictures for you guys, but I'm going to hold it up close to the camera right before I put those pictures in, so you can kind of see the stitch detailing. It looks like a growth of, I don't know, fans, pineapples. It's a delicate web. Okay, so the picture will do a much better job of showcasing it, but I did and did not follow the pattern. So the pattern recommends a 4.5mm crochet hook, and I thought that was very big, and I tend to have a loose gauge, so I actually went with a USG hook, which is a 4.25mm crochet hook. So that's the very beginning of it. But I forget that when I do chains, I tend to chain tightly. So actually, even though I was just a tiny bit far off from my gauge to meet the gauge suggested in the pattern width-wise, it felt a lot tighter. So I decided to go to a 4.5mm crochet hook. And when I switched to the 4.5mm crochet hook, I switched to my Tulip Edimo Rose crochet hook. And I was still getting a lot of pain in my hands in this valley. I still do, so I try to do some stretches every day for it. And I treated myself to, well, my sister, for my birthday, treated me to some Furls crochet hooks. So I ordered a 4.25 streamline resin crochet hook. And my gauge got even looser with that one. So there are 3 different gauges in this pattern, and they did not all block out, mostly because I didn't have blocking mats big enough, and I couldn't pin it to the floor because it's all tile here. There's no carpet. So one of my armholes is actually wider than the other, not because I sewed tighter or looser, but just because of the way the garment blocked. One has more fabric than the other, so it makes really weird wearing. I don't know how well you'll be able to see. See, this is just the tiniest bit shorter, and that makes a huge difference. So that just goes to show you that gauge is a finicky thing. Gauge can change based on the yarn you're using, based on the hook number, but also based on the hook brand you are using. And actually I did a little bit of a gauge experiment that I will share the results in the podcast a little bit later on. I did post it on Instagram way before, because it's just so much easier to grab your phone, record 15-second stories and upload it than, you know, it is to sit down, get pretty for the camera, and yeah, although I love it, I love that too. Okay, so what else can I tell you about this shrug? When I say I sort of follow the pattern, is that I just thought I was a genius and had the pattern memorized. Well, my gauge was also affected, because on one side of the panel I would usually, because you know when you make a shrug it's just one big rectangle, so on one starting side I would usually refer to the pattern just to make sure I was starting correctly, and then on the other side I was like, oh, I already know how this is gonna go. So as a result I started with a single crochet on one side and a double crochet on the other, instead of double crochet or single crochet on both of them, so one side actually stretched more than the other. Yeah. So to make this shrug, I used a Lion Brand Organic Oh Baby cotton. I showed you this before, but I'm not going to focus. So this is the bulk band. It didn't focus, so it's Oh Baby Organic, and it is 50 grams, 180 yards. It's fine yarn, you know, it's fingering weight. It is 100% organic cotton, and in the color is olive, and it really is the best, most perfect olive, and I now need everything in my wardrobe to be made with this yarn and in this color, please. So yes, I had purchased 6 balls of it, and they're 50-gram balls, so I had purchased 300 grams to make the shrug, and I actually had 130 grams left over from the original pattern. So you are able to make this with, oh my god, a little bit more than 400 grams of yarn, which I thought was fantastic actually, because, you know, it's a good stash busting if you have that amount of yarn in stash. And it's also, just want to talk a little bit about the wearability. It's very wearable, it's nice and breezy, but it provides just a little bit of warmth when you have a cool summer breeze blowing, that you don't feel too cold and chilly and naked. But highly recommend this project, doubly recommend the yarn, and also the Furls Streamlined Resin Crochet Hook. Loved it! So basically I loved everything about this project, even though we had those tension stuff issues. Okay, so since I'm talking about the Lion Brand Oh Baby Organic Cotton and having yarn left over, I decided to make a hat, because I had mentioned on Instagram right after I finished the shrug and did a photo shoot that I felt that I needed a hat to go with the shrug to have a full outfit. Also, now I need shoes in this color, so if you guys know, oh god, why am I saying that? No, never mind. Well, actually, if you do see shoes in those colors, message me and I will admire them until such time as we need shoes again to walk outside. Well, I do walk my dog. Anyway, getting sidetracked. So I made this. I follow Laura Algarra on Instagram. She is a Spanish crochet designer. She's lived in the UK, so she also designs in English, and she's got free patterns available on her website. This is the Celia Canotier. And for those of you who do not know, Canotier is a style of hat that was very popular in the 19th century, I believe. Do not quote me on that. Do not ask me for sources, because I just remember reading it, but I do not remember where. So if you're more interested in the history of this hat, then just Google Canotier. I'll write it in the description box below, where you will find chapters and show notes. Thank you. Anyway, I made this hat. So the original pattern is made with raffia yarn, which is, you know, paper-based tape kind of yarn, and it is, it's made with the raffia yarn and a 3.5mm crochet hook. So what I did was I held 2 strands of yarn together. So I had 100 grams of the olive Boye Baby Organic Cotton held together to make sort of a similar weight, and I still used a 3.5mm hook. Well, wouldn't you know it, my gauge was tighter. So this hat actually came out just the tiniest bits too small, but not really, because I have a small head, so I actually find it very comfortable to wear. It's just that if I press down on it, it loses its shape, as you can see, but it's still very hat-like, and I absolutely love it. So what does this have to do with gauge issues? Well, I didn't measure my gauge because as I said, I have a small head, so I didn't actually want an average hat size, because an average hat size is too big for my head. So it all turned out fine in the end, and ironically, I was also using a furls crochet hook as well. This time it was the Odyssey, and I tend to have quite a loose gauge when it comes to the furls crochet hooks, just because I switched where I hold my yarn. So I hold my yarn further to the back. Anyway, I did that. I made it with that crochet hook, and it turned out really awesome anyway, I feel. There are differences in the way the hat wears just because of the structure that the strands of cotton yarn have versus the structure raffia yarn has. She does use a hat wire to on the last row of the hat to kind of provide that structure that you want for this little wing for the hat, and I didn't know where to get that, and I was anxious to make it, so I just used floral wire that I got from Dollar Tree. It worked fine. It just happens to be in a very attractive lime green color, so you can see a little bit of the green poking through, but that doesn't really bother me. I'm gonna give you guys a closer look at the hat, just so you can see how it's gonna lay. I do want to, oh, I haven't woven in that end there. I do want to change this ribbon just because it's not big enough for the hat, so I actually cannot tie it. But I would like to find a similar ribbon, you know, with green, with stripes. This is just something I had in my hair accessory drawer that probably came, that probably was used to wrap something from that I got from Marshall's. So I'm gonna pause the camera because it's gonna cut me off, and then I'm gonna move on to the third elephant in the room. Okay, I'm back. So the third elephant in the room is something that I don't think I've shared before in the podcast, but it's a new pattern. I have it written up. I just haven't published it because I want to give it another read through, and I had to take product pictures. As it turns out, it's been raining, thunderstorms, gray, not attractive skies. Well, it's not that it's attractive, it's that our house is very dark, so when there's no light outside, it's gloomy on the inside. You have to turn candles on, the whole shebang. Anyway, so I've just been, since Sunday, staring at this thunderstorm thinking, oh my god, I need to take pictures of this item so I can actually publish a pattern in the blog this month, and also for sale on Etsy, because oh, we'll get into that later. Okay, anyway. And then it finally struck me, why don't you just have a photo shoot in the rain, like Frank Sinatra singing in the rain? Is it Frank Sinatra? Well, singing in the rain, whoever sings that. So I had this whole photo shoot yesterday planned out where I would, and the idea came to me in the shower, so it was already evening, losing light. I wasn't gonna be able to recreate it. Anyway, so the idea was that I would go outside, have my umbrella, and just, you know, have fun dancing, singing, and taking pictures in the rain, protecting my camera gear, of course. So I was very excited for that this morning. Well, this morning I woke up and there is sun. I mean, don't get me wrong, the sky's still overcast and, you know, that gray that you know you just had rain and it's very humid, but there's sun. So of course there goes super fun rain photo shoot out the window. Let's just stick with good old photography next to a neutral colored wall and in awkward camera angles to try and take pictures myself. because that's just the way it goes when you are the creative director of your own business. Anyway, I forgot what my point of this was. So yes, I haven't published the pattern because I didn't have nice pictures, and I had a different style in a way of styling in mind. I wanted to actually style this with a satin or silk or linen slip dress, something that was super summery yet delicate and feminine, because that's how I feel about this top. But you do what you got. And I had just a skirt to wear it with, so I am actually wearing it with a sunflower skirt that I've had for 3 or 4 years, and it was actually thrifted. It's handmade, so that was awesome. It's very short on me now, but do I really care? No. Anyway, so this is the Flower Child top, and if you can see by the little sneaky peek I have in the shoulder area and the pictures I'll be sharing with you, this has what I call the flower stitch. So this is my third design with the flower stitch. I've made the Shield Maiden top, the Crochet Flower Duster, and now the Flower Child top. And I've been meaning to make this top for a long time. I was just really attracted to the idea to have a little peekaboo in the front and then just solid crochet in the back, so that you could, you know, wear a shirt under it if you wanted, or just wear a bralette, however you want to use it. I just wanted to make this top really fun and comfortable, and I loved it. I think I achieved that. I'm actually wearing a size small, which is weird. Lately I would be wearing a medium just because I do have a medium belly and a small boobs. So I actually just made this to accommodate a size small. It's still a comfortable fit. It's not a tight fit. And these sleeves are sleeve caps. So they are first made in the round, and then you just start decreasing, and then you ease them and seam them into the space left. And you pick up stitches to do your neckline. So it's, I would say standard construction. You know, it's made in 2 pieces, and it's also made with Shine Sport from We Crochet Official. It's a lovely yarn. If you've never worked with it, it's super light and it just feels so good against the skin. I have projects in mind, what am I saying? I have other projects in mind for this yarn. All the details, of course, will be in the blog post that I publish about it. And what else can I tell you about this top? I love it. It's been in my mind for a long time. I just hadn't made it because I was undecided how I wanted to do the sleeves. Of course, you could leave it sleeveless and just have it be like a vest type top. You can make it longer and have it be a tunic or a dress. You know, there's so many possibilities with crochet and adapting crochet. So what does this have to do with the gauge? So I made the front before. I usually tend to make the front of my garment before I make the back of my garment. But by the time I made the back of my garment, several weeks had passed, and I had a 4mm streamline furls crochet hook. So I started my back with this furls crochet hook. I had done my front with a 4mm Tulip crochet hook and a 3.75 CLover crochet hook. Yes, you do need both sizes for the pattern. So anyway, in the back, I started using this furls crochet hook, and I was just, you know, crocheting along. I was almost at the armhole when I just suddenly decided, oh, let's compare the measurements. Well, my back was 1 inch bigger than my front. Why? I have this, so I quickly counted, I had the same number of stitches, I had followed the instructions I had previously written for the front. You know, there was no other reason for me to have such different gauge, other than it had been several weeks, probably my mood was different, and I was in the, I really need to get this project done if I want to publish it in sometime in April. So speed makes me a looser crocheter just so I can get it done. And also I was using a furls crochet hook, and as previously stated, I tend to have a looser gauge with the furls. Not that that's a bad thing, but if I had made both my front and my back with the furls, would have been perfectly fine. But since I had made my front with the tulip and my back with the furls, it wasn't so fine. So that's another lesson there in tension. If you cannot match the tension of a pattern, did you switch your yarn? What hook are you using? Change your hook. Is it the material of the hook? Because we know hooks come in plastic, resin, which is a higher class plastic, very nice. Metal, wood, different types of wood, because we have bamboo, and then I can't think of any other woods. But yeah, so these are all things that we need to keep in mind when we are trying to imitate the tension or the gauge swatch that a designer has made, because that gauge swatch, I made it based on my circumstances, based on the yarn I'm using, based on the hook I'm using, based on the mood I'm in, and based on the way I hold my hook, which is the next tension experiment I'm gonna have to do. But first, let's share the results of that first gauge experiment. So for my first gauge experiment, I posted it on Instagram stories, so it's gone now. But essentially, what I did was take the yarn, Big Twist value. It's 100% acrylic, 380 yards per 6 ounces. It's classified as a worsted weight. And I took a 5mm crochet hook. Crochet hooks that I had in 5mm, Tulip, Clovers, Knit Pro, and a Boye crochet hook. So for all the swatches, I chained 18. And I did my double crochet in the 4th chain from the hook, and then I just double crocheted across. So I used a double crochet stitch for all of this. And then I crocheted squares that were 16 stitches by 7 rows. Because typically you want to make your swatch bigger than 4x4 or 10x10 centimeters so that you have an idea of how your tension is going to change row by row, stitch by stitch. You get it. So these are my results. With the Tulip crochet hook, I got a gauge in a 4x4 square. I got 13 stitches by 6 rows. In the Clover, 13 stitches by 7 rows. So actually my rows with the Clover hook were tighter, but my stitch gauge was the same. For my Knit Pro, I got 14 stitches by 7 rows. So that means that with Knit Pro, my gauge was a lot tighter, as I was able to get 14 stitches in 7 rows. And I should also state that this was pre-blocking. I didn't block this. And for Boye, I got 12 stitches by 7 rows. So with the Boye, I had the loosest stitch definition, but my row gauge was pretty consistent with all hooks except for the Tulip. I unfortunately do not have a 5mm furls crochet hook, so I cannot add that to my study. And as you notice, these are all metal crochet hooks because I do not have a wooden 5mm crochet hook. So all of these, I held my hook in the knife position, not the pencil position, which used to be my norm, but my hand cannot handle that anymore. So they were all held in the knife position. It would be really interesting to take the same hook and crochet a swatch with the knife position and the pen position to see how my gauge changes. Because I know that with the pen position, I believe I have a looser row gauge and stitch gauge as well. So this was my result based on row gauge. Experiences crocheting with them. Clover and Tulip did give me the smoothest crochet experience. Knit Pro, it wasn't bad. It actually glides really well. My problem is the head. The head of it is very rounded and kind of just flat, and it's not that comfortable to, for example, I wouldn't use that hook to make a split single crochet or a central single crochet or waistcoat stitch, however you call it. The Boye, my yarn split a lot with the Boye, but yeah, it was okay. You know, the gliding wasn't as smooth as with the Knit Pro, Clover, or Tulip, but It's the most accessible hook. It's probably the hook we all begin to crochet with, and some people like it. I have an aunt who does not like crocheting with any ergonomic style hook. She just uses metal Boye stainless steel hooks. So to each to their own. But these are my observations with my swatch experiment that was all started because of the projects that I showed you here and how I use different hooks for each of them, sometimes within the same project, not hook sizes, just different hook brands within the same project, and they all had different gauges for me. So that is something to keep in mind. I think I have a little bit of time today, so I'm going to quickly share a work in progress with you, and it's just going to be the only one I'm going to share with you because the rest are commissions, and you can't talk about those. You'll see them in next year. Like, no, Christmas? Yeah, okay. So what I do have to share with you is living in this lovely Cats and Yarns and Flowers bag. This was the first Yael bag I ever got, and it was a gift. She makes bags by commissions now, so you just have to stick to her Instagram page and see when she opens up her orders. Highly recommend them. Okay, so what I have in here, I actually also posted about on Instagram because I frogged back my Egyptian inspired top. I'm frogging it back completely. I also cut my yarn. Okay, and I have already joined my front and back pieces of the Eat Cake Crochet Sweater. So yeah, I'm just working along. This is a completely different yarn blend to the one I used to design the pattern. I designed the pattern with a gorgeous Hawthorn speckle from We Crochet Official in the Panettone colorway. I have no words. You guys have seen all my reels about this yarn and how much I love it, so I'm gonna stop talking about that. But this time I decided to make a summer version of it. So this is 50% cotton, 50% linen, and it is Universal Lina from Premier Yarns or Universal Yarns. And it's lovely. Of course, linen and cotton behave completely different to wool nylon blends because linen will stretch and stretch and stretch and stretch the more you use it. So it softens up a lot. That's also one of the reasons why I decided to frog back the Cleopatra top, because even though I had blocked it, I forgot to account for the fact that you should make linen, you know, probably a little bit tighter than what you actually want it to end up being, just to account for that forever stretch that linen has. So far so good. I was crocheting this with a furls hook, so my first rectangle is really loose gauge, but it was the resin hook, and linen and plastic just do not mix. So now I'm just using a standard CLover Amour 4mm crochet hook, following the directions written in the pattern by myself. And yeah, I'm just plodding along, hoping to have a new summer garment other than this one. So yeah, what else can I tell you? I have a lot of, so yeah, what else can I tell you? Actually, I do have a lot to talk about in terms of free patterns versus paid for patterns. But that's a whole other topic, and like I said, I will talk more in depth about all the process behind all this designing in a later podcast, because today was all about tensions, and we don't need to add to our gauge issues, our emotional tensions as well. So that is it from me today. I hope you enjoyed the podcast, and please let me know what you think in the comments below. Please share what you are doing. I love reading comments. I love interacting with you. I love building our community. So please let me know if you found this interesting, if you found this useful. Have you experimented with this tension swatching thing? What were the results of your experiments? Do you find that you crochet tighter with a wooden crochet hook than a metal crochet hook? Please let me know in the comments below, and I will see you in my next podcast episode. And just happy crafting, guys. Bye. Hi guys, and welcome to the crochet. Hi guys, and welcome to the Crochet Cakes YouTube channel. This is